Fujimoto hinting that he's leaving the manga industry, giving a shout out to Makima's character. We'll be getting into all of that in today's analysis of Fujimoto's newest one-shot, Goodbye, Eri. Firstly, what do I think about the overall story itself? It was a display of masterful storytelling. No puns intended, but this one-shot felt like I was watching a really good film. From the get-go, Goodbye Eri grabs your attention by showing a touching story of a son filming the last moments of his dying mother. Then in typical Fujimoto fashion, the story grabs you by the balls by showing Yuta's mother exploding on her deathbed. Now we see explosions happen all the time in our favorite big budget movies. But to show you how really psychotic this is, the concept of death is taken very seriously in Japanese culture. From having full-on days to paying respect to dead ancestors, to having whole sections of your house dedicated to dead family member shrines, for Sensei to pull this Logan Paul Suicide Forest, Makima laughing her ass off on the sofa sequence, I could just imagine the mortified faces of the Japanese readers. Like, you know the explosion is fake and all, but at the same time you're just like, Fujimoto, what the fuck are you thinking? This typical dichotomy of juggling humor and tragedy is something we're all too familiar with in Fujimoto's stories. In addition, he's able to flawlessly interweave perspective shifts that act as plot twists. The number one example of this is the depiction of Yuta's mother. In the beginning, the mom is shown as a very loving parently figure. She bought Yuta a smartphone and computer, and based on how beautifully Yuta filmed his mother, it really seemed that he loved her. But then, the bombshell is dropped when the perspective of the film shifts from Yuta to the father. Yuta's mother in reality is very abusive, narcissistic, and even gaslights/manipulates Yuta to get what she wants. Even in her dying breath, the mother is cursing Yuta's name. Now, there's several layers to this. Firstly, I believe Fujimoto is pointing to the whole fabrication of social media and public perception. The films that Yuta makes is the idealized version of the said individual. To apply this to our own lives, see the curated images your family and friends post on their social media pages. On surface level, based on the actual post, it seems that they're extremely happy, have money, have the best fashion, come from the best upbringing, knows all the trendy places, etc, etc. But as we all know, this is all an idealized version of how they want people to perceive them. I just love how Fujimoto sensei tinkers with this concept of media, memories, and perception. I alluded to this earlier, but Fujimoto is also paying an ode to his most famous character of all time, Makima. Firstly, when you compare Makima and Yuta's mother, they both have very similar designs, they're both very manipulative, and they play with the reader's perception of them. This is kind of meta, but I think Sensei wanted to address the fans simping after Makima's character. Makima did so many fucked up shit, but you're choosing to remember her as a completely different character in your final cut of the film of her. The character of Makima also alluded to Eri's character. Both Makima and Eri save the MC from a certain death, and these two girls give each respective character a new life purpose. Makima making Denji join the public safety devil hunters, and Eri making Yuta make a masterpiece film. But as a reader, we learn very quickly that both Denji and Yuta need to give up a lot in this newly formed relationship. It's summarized really well in this one line from Yuta. He said, "I thought even if she sucks me dry and kills me, if it means I become sustenance for someone this beautiful, I'm okay with that." In other words, these girls have free real estate in our male MC's minds. Now the last thing I kind of want to focus on is Fujimoto's obsession with films and movies. This obsession was made very apparent in Fire Punch's character Togata, wanting to become a famous film director and wanting to make a film called Fireman starring Igni. Even in Chainsaw Man, there's a very important scene in the series where Makima and Denji go to the cinemas and they see that iconic panel of Makima crying when watching a film. Goodbye Eri shows Tatsuki's obsession with films on many different levels. Firstly, if it wasn't apparent enough, he structured the whole one-shot in a film strip layout. If you scroll quickly through the manga, it gives you a vibe of that 35mm movie film strip. And one big realization I had when reading this story is that I finally realized why Sensei makes his characters do a peace sign. Like whenever I would see Denji doing that peace sign, I always felt that it was very obscure. But after reading Goodbye Eri, I realized that Fujimoto wants to make it seem that the character is having this meta experience of spotting the camera being pointed at them. When someone points a camera at you, you don't just stare at it blankly. You start chucking up peace signs left and right. And I think in this same vein, Fujimoto sensei wants us to think of his stories as if we're looking at it from the perspective of the playwright or director's eyes. Fujimoto wants us, the readers, to see his stories not simply as a manga series, but as a good film. And that's why I personally think that later down in the road, Fujimoto is really interested in transitioning into the film industry. The reason for this? Tatsuki is not tied down by the manga medium. Story after story, he is simply obsessed with the storytelling process itself and not with anything else that's attached to manga. The very definition of Tatsuki Fujimoto stories is as far as you can get from the word conventional. Next, as I shared earlier, Fujimoto sensei is obsessed with the whole world of filming, pulling in film references, the whole nine. In a pretty infamous interview, when asked about what is one advice you would give to up-and-coming manga artists, he simply responds with, sign up for Netflix. Lastly, this man accomplished every single thing a mangaka could accomplish in their field. From selling millions on millions of manga copies, to getting the Harvey Award, which is the Oscars equivalent of manga awards, to getting your work adapted by a legendary anime studio. This mad lad has nothing else to prove in the manga industry. Even in his previous one-shot look back, you kind of see him displaying his in real life fatigue of being a mangaka. Now the question arises, is Fujimoto leaving the manga industry anytime soon? Probably not, because Chainsaw Man Part 2 is just about to drop this summer. But Sensei is still really young. He's only in his late 20s, so who is it to say we won't be seeing Fujimoto directing the next biggest Japanese or Hollywood film in the near future? Tatsuki Fujimoto may be remembered now as a crazy mad lad who's obsessed with being abused by powerful women, or seen as a crazy dude swallowing his dead fish. But just like the length of Togata's 300-year lifespan, to Makima's immortality, to Eri constantly being reincarnated, Tatsuki Fujimoto will always be remembered as a master storyteller.